Hey everyone, welcome back to the Collector's Compass, the official podcast of Collectors MD, where we explore the intersection of collecting, mental wellness, and responsible engagement across the modern hobby. I'm your host, Alyx founder of Collectors MD, and today's guest is someone whose work has reshaped how thousands of collectors think. Charles Howard, better known online as Collector Charles, has become one of the most thoughtful, incisive, and necessary voices in the sports card space. His channel dives into the mechanics most collectors feel, but rarely articulate. Things like manufactured hype, price manipulation, grading inconsistencies, release structures, psychological levers, and the ways industry narratives shape behavior. If you've watched his videos, you know Charles isn't here for drama. He's here for clarity, for truth, for pulling back the curtain on systems that influence collectors emotionally, financially, and psychologically, often without them realizing it. This episode builds on the conversations happening across the hobby. It expands on the recent dialogue we had last week with Professor Sports Cards and gives space for a deeper dissection of the forces shaping the modern landscape. Charles, I'm grateful you're here. Welcome to the Collector's Compass.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you being here, man. For our listeners who may not know the full scope of your work, can you share how your channel began and what motivated you to focus on the underlying mechanics of the hobby, not just the entertainment side?
Sure. So I started the channel because I saw other channels in the hobby. I got back in the hobby about 4 or 5 months ago. And most of what you see is just hype. It's just hype videos. Hey, this is the next big thing. This is the next big rip. But then on the other side of it is everything's falling. The sky's falling. The world's crashing in the hobby. And I just wanted to bring some balance to everything. That maybe not everything's falling apart, but at the same time, not everything's okay either. So that motivated me to make that channel in particular, just to give a more balanced view, so to speak, on how the hobby works, where I don't have an agenda. I don't have sponsorships or endorsements. I'm not shilling anything. I'm just simply speaking my mind based on someone who not only just recently got back into a hobby that he was a part of as a kid, but is just happy to have a hobby in general. So if I could do anything to contribute and help, I want to do it. And I feel that channel really does that. It really does try to help.
Yeah, and it is an awesome channel. For those of you watching or listening back after our live, you could check out Charles's channel. It's at Collector Charles on YouTube. He's also at Collect Charles on Instagram. And Charles has been an incredible member of our Collectors MD community now for the last several months. He joins pretty much every single weekly meeting. He provides his candid thoughts, his feedback, his support to our community members. And he has really cemented himself as a cornerstone of what we're building here at Collectors MD. So beyond just his contribution to the content around the hobby and the conversations that need to be had, I also just wanted to thank you for your ongoing support and everything that you've been involved in with Collectors MD. And I really, truly mean this. I feel like a lot of the things that we've accomplished recently, I wouldn't have been able to do without you.
Well, I appreciate that, Alex. It's the least I could do to help the hobby out. Anything to make the hobby better.
Absolutely. That's what we're trying to do here. So beautiful. On that note, let's jump into our first segment, which is called The State of the Hobby, What People Feel But Can't Explain. So let's start with the big picture question. You've covered everything from release structures to grading to market behavior. So when you look at the hobby right now, let's just say over the last couple of years, what stands out to you the most? What's actually happening beneath the surface once you strip away all of the marketing and the hype?
Well, what I see is something that's similar to what was going on in the 90s, what we call the junk wax era. So everything was overproduced. Everything was just everywhere. So cards weren't special because you simply could get a card anytime you wanted it. It wasn't what we have now. We have like parallel cards, gold and black and red and super fractors and that kind of thing. What we had back in the 90s were more of the insert cards. Jordan has a particular insert card. I think it's Precious Metal Gems. It's an iconic card. Back in the day, in the 90s, it was an insert card. It was more of a limited print run, but you didn't know exactly what the print run was. You just knew it was a rare card.
Right.
And it just seems like today they want to make everything seem like it's rare and it's manufactured. It's not genuine. And that's the biggest problem I see in the hobby is that there's a lot of disingenuousness going on and just basically marketing as opposed to just simply collect. Like we say in Collectors MD, collect with intent, not compulsion. But it seems like most of these companies now more promote compulsive behavior as opposed to just simply collecting the card you want, regardless of how much it costs.
Yeah, absolutely. And manufactured scarcity is something we talk about a great deal at Collectors MD. And when we talk about manufactured scarcity in the hobby, we're talking about a system where companies deliberately create this illusion of rarity, right? Not something, or not because something is naturally rare, but because they engineered it to feel that way, to feel rare, to feel like you have to have it. And the crazy part is that it actually works, right? Instead of true scarcity, which during like the junk wax era and well before that, before the parallels and the one-on-ones and the case hits and short prints, there was this sense that something being genuinely limited was it was just a different feeling. It was a different experience than what it is now. And so whatever new labels get invented, next quarter, next year, it all just adds to this pile of nonsense that has been manufactured and produced for the last 5-10 years. And frankly, it feels like we're in this modern era of junk wax where they're just pumping out any and everything to try to get people excited and hyped up. And it's coming out in such high volume now that something new or hot comes out, it's forgotten the next day or the next week because something else new came out. So today's product is yesterday's news. So it just, all of this just keeps collectors chasing because psychologically we're wired to respond to something that looks exclusive, even if there are thousands of other versions in circulation, right? So this whole concept of manufactured scarcity really just turns collecting into this unnecessary arms race, right? It's just like more colors, more patterns, more serial numbers, more inserts. And it's no longer about like the artistry or the storytelling. And it's about just keeping the machine running, just like by flooding the market while, manufacturers and platforms are just telling us everything is rare. Like companies create volatility instead of value, and they just keep us buying, ripping, and refreshing our feeds because the next manufactured hit might be the one, right? So the core issue isn't scarcity, it's false scarcity. We're not reacting to the card itself anymore, we're reacting to the illusion built around it, and that's where the harm begins, and that's why we need to be having these conversations about it. So I appreciate you addressing that. So you make a point in your videos that collectors aren't imagining this pressure. They're responding to systems designed to accelerate them. Can you break down one or two of the biggest mechanics you think collectors misunderstand the most?
The mechanics, as far as what collectors misunderstand the most, we could talk about breaking, for example. The misconception of breaking is that you get a chance to get certain cards or to break into certain boxes that you would normally not be able to afford. The reality is you're basically putting money into a pot and gambling, so to speak. It's a craps race, pretty much. You're just basically rolling the dice,
Right.
verbally. So it's not what you think it is. Most of what you see online, I call a mirage because it's not what you think it is.
Right.
And
It's an illusion.
it's an illusion. And that's exactly what breaking is. It's an illusion that you can get the card you want if you pick the team you want, when the reality is it's based on the curation of the box. It always is. No matter if you buy the box yourself or whether a breaker buys it, you're still going based on the curation. And, there's been other misconceptions about, some of those boxes are loaded or they're so-called influencer boxes. I wouldn't say there's necessarily influencer boxes per se, but if you're endorsed by Fanatics or Tops, how could you not believe at some point you're getting sent boxes that may or may not have something that hey, look, it's a certain chase card. It may not be the card. It might be another person, but it's a particular card, like a Kaboom or a Downtown, for example. It doesn't have to be Patrick Mahomes for it to be hyped. It could
Right.
be any player. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's not maybe influenced or there may not be curation going on just because you don't pull the exact big player. Like Shohei Ohtani is one thing, right? Everyone wants Shohei Ohtani. But if it's a parallel of some kind, like it's a superfractor, you could pull really any player and they're going to hype it up like it's a huge deal because it's a superfractor. The reality is it's not. The player is still not, hyped. There's a difference in Shohei Ohtani and Stephen Kwan, for example, right? So that's another big misconception is that there's a fear of missing out, and that when you do hit, every hit's going to hit pay dirt and you're going to be able to sell it and make huge money off of it. Hits just could be a relic. It just could be a simple autograph of anybody. That's what they consider a hit. So
Right.
you're not really hitting anything as much as you're getting a card of a certain kind. Like you're getting an autograph and a relic, but you're not getting the autograph or the relic you want.
Right. Yeah. The oversaturation is what's really driving a lot of this, a lot of these issues that you just brought up. I think you brought up a really good point. Like, not every case hit is going to do numbers. Like, you could hit, what's the insert that came out in Finest that pays homage to like the late 90s, early 2000s? The man insert. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
One of my favorite looking designs that they've like Topps has ever created, but they reproduce it now. Actually, it came out in 2020 as part of Topps Finest Baseball, and it was just a standard insert, right? And so you could pick one up for a couple bucks, which is great for somebody who's collecting with intention and wants to be able to own something that maybe they've always liked or that they've yearned for decades, and now it's accessible. But then they bring it back again a couple of years later as part of Topps basketball, unlicensed this past year, and football as well, both unlicensed products. And they brought it back as a short print. And you'd think, oh, the man insert, this is like one of the most iconic insert sets ever. And sure enough, you could pick up a Dirk Nowitzki, the man refractor short print for like $10, which again it's great for people who are looking to collect with intention and buy what they like. And we talk about that all the time. Find the hidden gems, find the pieces that stand out and fit your collection or fit your story. And that's all great, but the other side of it again is this oversaturation, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So take someone like Shohei Ohtani, who you just mentioned. There aren't just a handful of Ohtani cards out there. There are thousands of them every single year. And I'm not talking about like the volume of cards they produce. That's in the probably millions. We're talking about the unique cards that they make copies of. We're talking about parallels, refractors, short prints, variations, case hits, super short prints. It never ends. And when every single product is pumping out 10 new versions of the same player, nothing actually feels rare anymore. The market gets diluted. Collectors get confused and values become volatile because there's no clear like hierarchy of what actually matters, right? So oversaturation turns stars into print runs. Really, it takes someone as special as Ohtani, a once in a generation type of athlete, and surrounds him with so many manufactured variations that the excitement just becomes noise. It just becomes excess. And instead of collecting with intention, people end up chasing because they feel like they're supposed to. That's the problem. When everything is rare, nothing really is. And another thing I just want to quickly bring up is the fact that what you talked about with breaking and it being this illusion. Absolutely, breaking creates this illusion that you're just one card away from something huge, right? The lighting, the hype, the countdown timers, the graphics, the breaker operating as the dealer and the entertainer, and the host all in one, the chat going wild. It all feels like you're part of something big and happening right now, right? That sense of urgency and FOMO we always talk about. But that feeling isn't tied to like real odds or real value. It's tied to atmosphere. It's all theater. It's all a facade. And you're
Smoke and
not
mirrors.
paying, it's smoke and mirrors. You're not paying for the card. You're paying for the moment, the suspense, the adrenaline rush, the dopamine hit. And once that moment fades, and it always does, you're right back chasing the next one. And that's the illusion. It feels like a path to winning, but it's really just this endless pipeline to just keep spending. So these are all things that we talk about a great deal at Collectors MD. And we're, of course, just trying to spread awareness and educate people so that they don't get sucked into these patterns and fall victim to the machine that is the hobby today. Right. So with that, I want to ask you another question. So I want to dig into something that came up in one of our earlier conversations, and that's the exhaustion that a lot of people are feeling, right? There's this sense of just being priced out, pushed out, or just mentally overloaded or burnt out. So what's driving that fatigue right now across so many segments of the hobby?
Just the sheer amount of volume of stuff that's coming out. Just this week, I mean, we're in December. There's been Topps Update Chrome basketball. It's already come out at $3,500, by the way, on Dutch auction, which we may get into that here momentarily. But it's fascinating because Alan and Ginter come out. I work in a car plant all day, so my throat's real dry and stuff. So
you're good.
Me.
Take all the time you need. I've been doing that too. It's like the dry air and combination of just talking way too much, way too often.
It's dry air, not only out here where I'm at, where it's cold, but it's also in the plant. It's just nothing but dry air and stuff. So it messes with my voice a little bit. But just in the past week, it's been Topps Chrome Update base or basketball.
Basketball, yep.
But now it's Alan and Ginter. That's the big thing that everyone's talking about this week.
Yeah.
And
which, by the way, not to cut you off, but Alan and Ginter has never carried any hype around it. As a matter of fact, of all of the intentional collecting type of products that we would recommend to our intentional collectors, Alan and Ginter would probably be at the top of the list. Right. But suddenly it comes out and it's like,
as a matter of fact, I got a hobby box today, even at a little bit of an inflated price. It was $150 for a hobby box. Think about this. The hobby jumbo box for Topps Chrome basketball update was at $3,500. So this is it's a cheap rip. And the blasters are $25 and you can pull some cards. I pulled, a matter of fact, I pulled an autograph and I pulled a relic card of Wade Boggs.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not going to change my life, but it's like, hey, that's cool. It's one more thing that's kind of cool to have around my house. It's like I have a Wade Boggs game worn relic card in my house. That's cool.
One of the favorite cards that I've ever pulled was out of Alan and Ginter X. Are you familiar with that product?
Yeah.
It's like it's the same exact product, but all of the cards are black instead of like that sort of eggshell white.
Yeah.
And I hit last year, actually, it was about a year and a half ago, maybe a little more, a little less. I had a Paul Skeens on card auto silver ink in that, like, it's the mini, but like in the black frame.
Yeah,
it's gorgeous. It's really one of the most beautiful cards that I've ever pulled. And it was at my local card shop. I just walked in. I think I had some credit with them. They sold me on it. I'd never purchased Alan and Ginter before, and I was like, let's give it a shot. I ended up hitting a Skeens and a Picro Armstrong auto from the same box. And the Picro Armstrong, I think, had a gray border with maybe like purple kind of like accents. It was also a beautiful card, but the Skeens was something else.
Right.
But yeah.
I love Picro Armstrong. I'm a Cubs fan, so that's like my favorite card. And I'll tell you, when I first got back in the hobby, I probably done it the wrong way because I was chasing, the first thing I saw was rookie patch autos. Like, ooh, that sounds awesome. It's also expensive. Right. So the first major rip I had was 2024 Topps Inception Baseball. The reason was you can find Pete Crow Armstrong rookie patch autographs in it. And I thought, okay, how rare is it? Well, there are different parallels, different varieties. I didn't really understand that concept yet. All I know is I wanted a piece of a jersey that he was wearing and his autograph on it. I literally spent more than I've ever spent on cards before. And I pulled some good hits, but not the one I wanted. And that seems to be the cautionary tale in the hobby is like, sure, you might get a hit. You might get like a rookie patch of Paul Skeens, but I don't collect Paul Skeens, or Jackson Holiday, Athlete Rutschman, whoever. And what are you going to do? You're going to have to try to either move it and try to trade it to get the card you want, or you sell it on eBay. Maybe the fees eat you up, or you try to do a private sale or what have you. So you turn into a salesman just because you want to keep collecting.
Right.
And the compulsive behavior can spiral out of control a little bit. And the next thing you know, you're chasing after bigger cards like Topps Dynasty or Topps, Diamond Icons, that kind of stuff. It can be a slippery slope. And when I first started getting back into the hobby, I had to start, kind of toning that down. Like, okay, I can't be buying these boxes like this. It's crazy. Just simply look for the card you want and just do the math. Like, for example, back, I guess this was in the summer when he was at his peak. Like, he was actually in the MVP conversation over Shohei Ohtani. So those cards were $600-$700. Now, I could probably find one $250, maybe even less than that if I looked hard enough. Right. So it's learning to be patient. It's learning to be patient. The off season is when that stuff will go way down. When someone's really hyped up, I heard this today about a Shohei Ohtani. I think it was his rookie superfractor card from Topps Chrome, his rookie year. Dana White offered $4 million. Said, I will pay that right now for that card. This guy saw the Game 7 of the World Series. I guess, he saw the Dodgers won it and all that stuff. He goes, oh, now it's $10 million. And Dana White goes, I'm out. Like, seriously? And that's a conversation people are actually having. Like, if someone offered me $4 million for a card, I'm probably going to try to play it off cool, but I couldn't probably get that card sold fast enough because, at the end of the day, it's still hype. He has not completed his career yet. He's 4-time MVP, but it's still hype-based. And then hype can eventually die down. Anything can happen. Mike Trout was the biggest thing in the hobby back in 2012 when he come out. Not so much now because over the years he's been injured. He's not been on a good team. That hype dies down. The same could go for Bryce Harper. It's the same way. We can go on and on. I can name pretty much any rookie that hasn't really been consistent. Like Mike Trout was consistent for probably about 10 years, and then all of a sudden it just dropped out.
Look at Zion Williamson.
Zion Williamson was the biggest. He might have been one of the most overhyped since Shaq. Shaq was he's worth it, but that's all you seen when he come out was Shaq this and Shaq that. I remember that as a kid, okay?
Yep.
I wanted the Shaq Topps Gold card, but back then it was a $2 rip. I could buy that pack for $2. I could buy 5 for $10. I could mow some grass when I was a kid, and $20 could buy me, 10 packs.
Sure.
And I got that Shaq card. But another thing I learned too is I had a Jordan Gold card. I'm like, well, I could trade that and get Shaq because everyone loved Jordan, and that's what happened. I traded that Shaq card for Jordan or Jordan for Shaq, and they're like, why would you do that? Even back in 1994 when I was doing this, there was kids like, why were you doing that? That card ain't worth it. I'm like, I want Shaq. I don't collect Jordan. I don't like Jordan. But he's the greatest. I'm like, he might be, but I love Shaq. He's my guy. I want Shaq. So if I have a Shohei Ohtani, for example, patch autograph, and someone's got a Pete Crow Armstrong rookie patch autograph, unless it's like a ridiculous discrepancy, I'm probably trading it. Because I would rather have Pete Crow Armstrong than Shohei Ohtani. And the thing you notice in the hobby is they shame you for doing stuff like that. That's not good investment. That's not, why would you do that? Why aren't you grading it? Why aren't you paying $6,000 as an upcharge to get your really awesome card graded? Like, why are you celebrating that? It's insanity.
Yeah. The passion doesn't always have to match the price tag, right? Like, just because a card is worth X amount doesn't, and you have an opportunity to, let's say, trade it for a card you have been looking for, a player that you really care about or root for, if somebody presents you with that opportunity and you're losing a couple $100, but you'll never see that card come across again. Like, just don't let other people influence your decisions and
The
the
perfect
path that you
example of
want to go down.
I have a perfect example of this. I've done this, I think, about a month ago. Jaden Daniels was the big thing. You remember this? I mean, it just happened a month or two ago. Jaden
Yeah.
Daniels was everything. So
What is he now, like third or fourth on the
he's
I would
injured
say,
for
like, in
one.
terms of like the rankings for quarterbacks in that class. I mean, he's coming back this week, but
Yeah.
the Commanders are completely out of it this year.
Yeah.
They're eliminated. And so,
Right.
yeah, he fell
I
off
had
a
his
cliff in terms of his value.
So my first grading submissions were Jaden Daniels cards, right? Because that's what I was ripping, because that's what everyone was saying. You need to get in on this, right? So
Right.
I ripped some optic, and I pulled some Jaden Daniels refract. I think I pulled a hollow. That's the one that was like the most lucrative. It got a PSA 10. I'm like, okay, cool. Around $300 retail, or how much Card Ladder says it is. I try selling it, and everyone's trying to, lowball, and you got to haggle. And I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just trade this thing? And I found a Shota Imanaga rookie anime card from Bowman. And I thought, that's the same price as this card? I'm like, hey, you want to trade? I use this app called Veriswap, right? They're like, hey, you want to trade? And he's like, sure, add $10 to cover shipping. Deal. I have an awesome anime Shota Imanaga card from the Cubs, my Cubbies, that I have it displayed over here. I look at it, and it's so neat and cool because it's a super short print. And it's not that expensive because he's not a very sought out person like Pete Crow Armstrong would be. He would be more probably double or triple. But, I have a card I wanted. And I guess that person either had a liquid card he can move, or maybe he collected Jaden Daniels. So we both won. And we don't focus on that. We focus on, I just made a $40,000 deal, or I made a $40,000 trade, or it's got to be the money. It's got to be the amount. It's got to be a certain player. Patrick Mahomes, Ken Griffey Jr., Mickey Mantle. Okay, those are awesome people and awesome people to collect, but, my Shota Imanaga is just as awesome to me. My Ryan Sandberg rookie signed autograph, the first card I purchased since I got back in the hobby. Yeah. That's one of my favorite cards because he's my guy.
Right.
But
a huge part of the fatigue comes from the way hype and urgency are used to push people into buying right now, like you were talking about before, right? Every release gets framed like it's the next big thing, and there's this constant pressure to grab it in the moment it drops, before prices spike, before it sells out, before you're too late. Like, the irony of that is that the prices spike, they really hit their peak the week of release, and then they settle down. And just like that, manufactured urgency messes with people's decision making. Instead of slowing down and collecting intentionally, they end up feeling like they just have to buy everything in the moment, or the day of, or that same week of release. Yeah. Like, you see somebody hit a big card that maybe you were watching from the sidelines, and you're like, damn, I was planning on getting into that break and I chose not to. And now you're suddenly fighting with yourself, like, I want to go buy that card on the aftermarket, or, make an offer to the person who hit it. It's like, if you're trying to collect with intention by standing on the sidelines and watching from afar, but then getting sucked back in through that, doorway or path, are you really collecting with intention? So you just have to be really, really careful, right? Because all of this is it's reactive. It's not thoughtful. And after a while, that cycle of just that constant FOMO and rushed spending just wears people down. And that's just not a healthy way to live.
Yeah. Compulsive behavior does the same thing. Like, if you're acting in a compulsive way, it's usually in a manic way. So you're just like, you know what? I won't miss anything. So I'll buy 4 or 5 teams. And it's like, okay, why would you do that? What if none of them hit? Then you just lost your entire bud on a chance. Now, your odds are going to increase because you bought more teams, and you might hit one of their random cards. But at the same time, eventually, if 2 or 3 times, if you don't do that, and it's happened to me, I was in breaks too. I done everything that a newbie would do because I just wanted to see what it was like. I have to see things for myself. I don't, I take people's, thoughts, opinions, and their things, with a grain of salt. I'm always skeptical. Not that I don't believe it, but I have to experience it for myself.
Yeah.
And, that's that's how I've always kind of been. But at the same time, once I learned that you can't do that and be, a successful collector really and collect with intent,
Right.
I dialed it down, and now I do better. I collect with intent, and I don't do
Yeah.
compulsive stuff anymore.
Yeah, you're doing a great job of it, and you're paving the path for other collectors who are watching your content and joining our meetings. And again, you've just become such an important part of our community, and just echoing our mantra and our values and everything that we talk about every single day. So, of course, really, really appreciate that. With that, we're going to transition over to our next segment, which is manufactured hype, manipulation, and the psychology behind it. You've broken down hype cycles in a way that actually makes them make sense, right? There's nothing accidental about them. Can you walk us through how modern hype is manufactured and how collectors keep falling for it? We talked to, and just to differentiate, we were talking about before manufactured scarcity, which is different than hype. And manufactured hype is a whole nother beast that we're constantly combating every single day with the platforms, the manufacturers, the breakers, the card shops, and the influencers and creators in the hobby space. So again, why do collectors keep falling for this sense of manufactured hype?
Because the folks that are marketing are really good at it. It's that simple. They're really good at hyping. They're really good salesmen. Like, I would almost guarantee someone that used to be a breaker or is a breaker may have been a car salesman at some point, or in
Oh
marketing,
yeah,
or in advertising, anything to where you can, you're outgoing. You have an out like I can't remember the term for it, but extrovert. You're an extroverted
yeah,
personality, right? So those extroverts, like you see, there's so many influencers. I don't want to name them all by name. There's some particular ones that okay, they're definitely extroverted, and they're definitely being sponsored by Fanatics or Arena Club, which is another one that has absolutely drawn my ire more than probably anything, really. But manufactured hype is just great marketing. And it's great marketing because they're making money off of it. It's not
right,
great for collectors because we're being fooled and manipulated into thinking that we're getting something that we're not going to end up getting at all.
right,
And it's fascinating to me that Topps does this with their marketing. They'll show a big hit being pulled. It's almost always a breaker doing it. And the comments almost always say, wow, surprise, surprise, a breaker pulled it. Wow, I wish collectors or an actual person could pull it or something like that. But they always hype the breaker. And it's usually a breaker that actually goes on Fanatics Live that does it. So they're good at what they do. They get engagement, and they'll find that one person that's, got the FOMO going on, the fear of missing out. And they're like, okay, I got to go buy that pack now. I got to go buy that
exactly.
box. And it's just marketing. It's
Yeah,
really, if you ever went to school and took a marketing class and retain any of the information, you would understand, okay, this is exactly what's going on. Take inventory, understand that they just want to get you to buy the product.
yeah.
They don't
I was
really,
Yeah, I was a marketing major in college, so
yeah,
the irony of it all is I should have been able to see right through it, and I think a part of me knew better, but nonetheless, I was a sucker and I couldn't
I had to
control
beat the
myself,
odds. I played
and
poker,
the same
okay?
thing, yeah, the same thing applies to gambling.
Yeah.
But like, when we take a step back and we really think about it, like Fanatics and Arena Club aren't just big companies, like you said. They hire elite marketing teams. We're talking about people who understand behavioral psychology, urgency triggers, digital funnels, and how to engineer hype at scale. Like, these aren't just, run of the mill hobby guys posting for fun. They're professionals who know exactly how to create demand, build FOMO, and keep you scrolling, clicking, and spending. They craft the promos, the countdowns, the teaser videos, the limited drops, the influencer partnerships, all of it designed to make every release feel like a once in a lifetime generational moment. And when that level of marketing power is applied to manufactured scarcity manufactured hype, it's incredibly effective. People get sucked in before they even realize what's happening. And that's why so many of us, so many collectors feel overwhelmed. You're not just navigating the hobby, you're navigating $1 billion marketing machine built to keep you buying, right? And
Right.
and then one other thing I wanted to touch on is the casino component. Their marketing departments bring on folks who know the ins and outs of the human brain and how the dopamine centers trigger. And so that's why, like these casinos, you see these slot machines, you see how advanced they are now and how they've been completely gamified.
Yep.
Yeah, the flashing lights, the graphics, it's
Yep.
all one and the same. This is exactly why Whatnot and Fanatics Live and all these break streams look like full on casinos because it's a page out of the same exact playbook. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly how to hook you, and they're capitalizing on every opportunity. So we just have to be more careful, keep spreading awareness, keep spreading this message, because as we continue to educate the masses, people will start to be able to pick up on it. And maybe even if it's not everyone, if we could just get one person out of, let's say, 50 people to change their, last minute, in the moment purchasing decision because they saw this video or they saw a post that we put out talking about intentional collecting, then that's a win. It's a win for them. It's a win for us because we want to make a difference. We want to help shift culture, but we can't do that from the sidelines. We have to do that by being at the center of the conversation. And we're going to touch on that in a little bit because it's something that, keeps coming up and something that you and I have unpacked and talked about both on and off camera.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get to that, one of the biggest reactions in our Collectors MD community happens when you talk about things like price floors, artificial scarcity, and transparency, especially around things like reverse Dutch auctions, which you just brought up before with the Topps basketball, the Topps Chrome basketball first day issue release yesterday, which started at $3,500 and eventually settled at, was it $1,650? So what?
$1,750. Exactly half of what it cost.
Yeah.
Sounds kind of convenient
So
when you think of it
what?
that way.
Yeah, it's maybe not by coincidence. So what makes these structures so powerful and what makes them so dangerous? And I want you to think about how this, again, is a page out of the Panini playbook with first off the line Dutch auctions, reverse Dutch auctions, how they marketed that for years to promote the hobby, the manufactured floor prices, the manipulative tactics to get people to spend, and then, basically use it as like an advertising tool to push their hobby product after the release. So again, what makes these structures so powerful and what makes them so dangerous?
What makes them so powerful is the fact that you hype a certain player, like basketball, for example. The big hype with Topps basketball is they've got the license back for the first time in 16 years, 09 and 2010, which, by the way, was Steph Curry's rookie year. So, of course, they're going to go with that and, hit the nostalgia beat with everybody. It works. Sometimes it works with me. Sometimes it don't, depending on the price, which is another question, you asked the second part of it. The dangerous part of these prices and how these things work is that you're going to price the average collector out of the hobby. And all of a sudden, these cards are going to sit on the shelves, just like they did post junk wax era.
Right.
And, Topps was literally bankrupt and about to go out of business, and they were rescued. And all of a sudden, the marketing from Fanatics got behind everything, and all of a sudden we've entered a new boom. It happens that way. Panini is an Italian company. They have American base here, but they're an Italian company. And the one thing that got Panini off the ground was Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant. Once you got, oh, wow, oh, snap, Kobe Bryant, okay, I see you there. All of a sudden, he's got autographs in the product. He's got cards everywhere. Back in those days, and I remember this, it wasn't scarce. Like, sure, you would want a Kobe autograph no matter what era it was. But it was 2012, and he was nearing the end of his career. He tore his Achilles and stuff like that, but yet it was hyped. That's all you heard about. This is the Panini Silver. You can get a silver Kobe autograph. You can do this. You can do that. And Upper Deck is another company. Back in the 90s, they were it. It was Upper Deck Fleer tops. Upper Deck fell off because they lost licensing, and they just simply weren't able to make the same kind of quality products that they used to. But they had the one thing that kept them afloat, and his name's Michael Jordan, who had still has to deal with him to this day. He's the only place Upper Deck's the only place you can get his autograph card, and it's in a suit. It's in a suit, but still, it's a Michael Jordan autograph, and
Right.
And that's another thing too. It's been overhyped, and the dangerous part about that's the overhyping of everything. That everything is so scarce. Like, I think one of the things that's been mentioned is a King Griffey Jr. card, right? It's PSA 10. There's 9,000 pop PSA 10 of that card. And it's doubled in price just over the last month or two. And it's like trying to figure that out. And there's so many factors into it. But the fact is, sure, PSA 10 is cool. It's the perfect card if you're looking at grading. But an 8 and a 9, they look just as good. The eye appeal still.
Yeah, I agree. I find it interesting how you just mentioned that, was it 09, 10 tops when they lost their license? Was that the year they lost their license?
It was the year after. The last year they had the license was 2009, 2010.
Okay. So Steph Curry's rookie card is the iconic Topps rookie card. Is that licensed or unlicensed?
It's licensed, and it's actually
licensed, but
it was a lot shorter printed too.
What's ironic about that card is he's not wearing a jersey in it.
No, it's just him in a t-shirt.
Yeah, but it's still, loved and coveted and has been considered one of the most iconic cards of the recent, I would say, last 30, 40 years, right?
Yeah.
So, people talk about the license, the unlicensing. At the end of the day, like you said, the player's going to carry the product. Michael Jordan's autograph, at the end of the day, whether he's wearing a suit, he's wearing a golf outfit, or if he's wearing a Chicago Bulls jersey, it's still going to sell because it's Michael Jordan. A Steph Curry rookie card is still going to sell because it's Steph Curry. So again, the noise, the outside voices, people saying, oh, don't buy unlicensed, it doesn't carry value. If you're collecting with intention and you like something from, let's say, Leaf or Panini Baseball or Topps basketball over the last couple of years before they got the license, and it's, you can afford it, and it is, you're staying within your means and your boundaries, go for it. Don't listen to the marketplace and the influencers and creators and everyone else telling you that this is what you should buy. You have to buy a Kaboom or a Downtown, otherwise you're not part of this club. Like, it doesn't work that way. So I want to shift gears. I want to talk about our experience last week on Professor Sports Cards. So there were a few moments where the compulsive behavior element, when we talked about things like the 12-step program and the weekly meetings and the recovery guide and all of these things, it got kind of laughed off, and it really highlighted something. The hobby often deflects serious issues with humor. So from where you sit, Charles, why is the hobby so uncomfortable with accountability and honest conversation?
Because most in the hobby do not want to associate them collecting cards with gambling. It's as simple as that. And another element too, Professor Sports Cards is from Las Vegas. So he's desensitized to the gambling aspect of it, in my opinion. That's why he sort of laughed it off. And others did in the chat too, because quite simply put, they just don't want to associate that with their hobby. And it seems like when you're calling someone out, if they feel seen, they get offended by it. So when we were simply just having a conversation about what we're doing and how we're doing it, next thing you know, it's, oh, well, you did this and you did that. When did remember when you did this? Remember when you did that? You guys aren't perfect. And it's like, we're not calling you out on anything other than just saying, hey, we're here to help. And there needs to be that aspect in this hobby because everything's expensive and you can get really carried away. We have our weekly meetings. We know this firsthand. You can get carried away just by simply buying a lot of cards, even if it's retail. Yeah. Stuff's not cheap.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to beat a dead horse. Everybody knows that the current state of the hobby, the mechanics that have been embedded over the last 5-10 years, it's gambling. There's no other way to put it. Everybody knows it. We don't have to, go above and beyond to convince folks that the hobby has become a gambling machine, and there needs to be some oversight, regulation, guardrails, all of the things that we talk about. That goes without saying at this point. And I want to preface this by saying I'm super grateful that Professor Sports Cards gave me the opportunity to come onto his show, his platform, talk about Collectors MD, explain why we exist. And despite all of the banter and the chat going, ballistic in the comments and giving us flack about our partnerships and how we present ourselves and the position or the way the company is formed, all of these things like aside, I'm still really grateful because it gave us an opportunity to continue getting the message out there. And so whether the feedback, whether the comments or the backlash is good, bad, otherwise, that's sort of arbitrary, because at the end of the day, even if we're reaching, again, one person that night who needed our support, we're making a difference. So I told Mike Petty this when we were on the live. I said, I would literally combat 100 vintage Dan card show, whatever his name is, and cartels and Orlando's and all of these naysayers every single night if I had to, if it meant we were making a difference for just one person. And I truly believe that. So with that said, I think Professor Sports Cards, guys like him and Mike Petty, they were really supportive. Like Professor Sports Cards reached out to me after the show on Instagram, DM me. It was like, you did a great job. You handled yourself really well. I'm super supportive. I want to, definitely join one of your meetings, be a fly on the wall, all these things. And I think he genuinely, he's not just blowing smoke. I think he genuinely feels that way. But as part of his shtick, as part of the content, he needs to be a little bit polarizing and kind of laugh things off and inject the humor and engage the chat and, maybe sort of egg them on a little bit, right? And Mike Petty, sort of the same thing. I mean, he was typing away early on before he joined the live, and he was saying silly things. And then he joined and he was like, my man, like Collectors MD, I was your first subscriber. I joined your lives. And he was saying all these nice things and had nothing but good things to say. It's kind of like that. My dad and I actually rewatched the live last night or a couple nights ago. So I'm spending a couple days here in Pennsylvania this week while my wife is traveling for work. But we watched back the show and he was like, this guy's Howard Stern talking about Professor Sports Cards. Exactly. I was like, yeah, I mean, it's so spot on. And honestly, it's a compliment. Like Howard Stern's mega successful and has a great thing going for him. But that's what it is at the end of the day. And like, we're going to have to navigate those conversations. We're going to have to overcome the adversity and the obstacles and have the right answers, sort of figured out and make sure that we're always dialed in so that we can respond to them if for when we have to. But that's par for the course. It's the nature of the beast. And it's something that at the end of the day, we signed up for by starting this movement. We're not going to be able to appease everybody. We're not going to have fans everywhere we go. I said that on the show. But at the end of the day, again, if we're making a difference and we're shifting culture and we're helping out the people that need it, even if it's just one person, then we're doing something right. And so with that, I want to transition over to our next segment. We're having, this is really incredible content, I think, and we're talking about some really important topics, but I do want to hit the turbo button a little bit just because we're already at almost an hour. So segment 3 is called Grading, Trust, and Why Scandals Never Collapse the Market. So you've said something that stuck with a lot of people, I think, and that's the hobby runs on trust, but also survives without it. We've seen things like trimming scandals and the shill bidding and the accusations against major players, and yet the market just keeps on rolling. So why doesn't the hobby ever truly hold anyone accountable?
Because they just move on to the next one. They move on to the next person. So, if you have someone like we call him P. Ryan. I don't even know. Patrick Ryan, I think is his name.
Sure.
He's well known in the hobby because he's a big time collector. And, he got a famous autograph. He had I think a cut autograph, I think of Babe Ruth or somebody, and got Jordan, Brady, and all the, Lionel Messi and Gretzky, all of them to sign it, and he graded it and had it authenticated. And that was kind of a big deal in the hobby in the grand scheme of things. But as far as mainstream, no one really knew who he was. And Probstein, it's another thing too. And nothing really reaches mainstream unless it's like hundreds of millions of dollars. This was probably millions of dollars, to be honest with you, but at the same time, it's still sports cards. And
he did close to $1 billion in sales over the last 21 years on eBay.
925 million over 21 years on eBay.
I think this is like mainstream headline news if it gets picked up by a media outlet, but
only
it's
if
the
they
hobby, like you said.
Actually did something that was,
Right.
maybe criminal. That's where they're
illegal, technically out of bounds. There's just so much. There is just such a gray area, and when we talk about things like ethics and morals and doing the right thing, some of these guys just find a way, sort of, to slither their way through, that path, and like it's unfortunate, and people end up paying the price, but they find a way to fall through the cracks and not get in trouble, not get called out. And
people that are businessmen,
eBay, and he's carrying his business on there, and this whole platform that he hyped up, is yesterday's news. Nobody's talking about it anymore.
Right?
How many people were affected though?
Yeah, people are businessmen, and they know how to work the system, and they know simply how to do something, and they'll be like, okay, it'll be hobby news for a few days, but then it'll die down once I just let it go and I move back to where I was. So no one's talking about Probstein anymore because he's not doing anything polarizing anymore. He's not going on podcasts and saying, hey, so here's what happened. He released a statement to a platform that I think he actually has a stake in, Collect, and said, hey, we think we were hacked and all that. It's the oldest trick in the book. We were hacked. Okay. So they're like, you know what? Is it really that big a deal? We'll find out. I guess if the FBI is investigating him, that might be a big deal. But right now, it's just not.
He may as well just say, I plead the fifth. I got hacked. I mean, it's fluff. Anyway, I don't want to get political. I don't want to talk about individuals on here. We try to keep it positive, but it is an important topic because it's something that really shook the hobby a couple of weeks ago and affected a lot of people. And while we're not going to be able to, change things tangibly all the time, we can at least help the people that are being affected. And that's what this is about, is providing the space for people to come stigma-free, judgment-free, talk about what you're going through with other people that are experiencing the same thing and also get it. That's what this is all about. So let's talk about grading. So you've done some of the clearest breakdowns out there from what I've seen. Things like the inconsistencies, the incentives, the halo effect of certain slabs. What do you believe most collectors still don't understand about the grading ecosystem?
The grading ecosystem is very money driven. And back in the days where the junk wax era happened, you only graded cards if you were wealthy. You didn't really do, you would have a top loader and a penny sleeve or a one touch or a screw down back in the older days. If you want to go back to the 80s, if you graded your card and had them slabbed, you were seen as more of a hoity-toity, like, okay, so you're Mr. Moneybags if you're putting your card in what they called a tuxedo, the SGC slab.
Oh, yeah.
It's got the tuxedo on the box when you get it. That's what you're dressing up your cards. Okay, fancy boy, that's fine. You got a little 9.5 shack. What's wrong with mine? And mine's got a little wear and tear on it or whatever, and it's just fascinating to me that now grading's everything. Like, you got to get a PSA 10 or you got to get a Beckett Black Label, which is like the thing to have. And when I remember as a kid, the PSA cards were fine, but you got a Black Label card, a Beckett Black Label 10 of any card, you had something, and you probably paid a lot for it. Like, it's crazy to me, like grading and stuff. And PSA's buying cards and stuff. They're buying the slabs. They're like, here's our offer for us. So how can you not think there's pop control going on? Like, they're not going to give, like I had a Kobe Bryant. It's a perfect looking clear ultra rookie. I looked at that card with a microscope. I would have even sent it in for grading if it want to get a 10.
Right.
I'm like, okay. this has got to get a 10 because it's a $900 value card. If it's 10, it's only, I think, 150, maybe 200 if it's a 9. I send it in, it comes back, guess what? It's a 9. And I'm like, okay, there's definitely pop control going on because I looked that thing over like a fine-tooth comb. And it is what it is. But that's something I don't think a lot of people in the hobby understand is that, yes, PSA is capable of doing that. They bought SGC for crying out loud because they want to try to get sort of a monopoly over grading, whether it's vintage or whether it's modern. It's money driven. And the quicker people realize it's money driven and it's not hobby driven, the better off a lot of them will be. And the more one touches and top loaders will be sold because it doesn't matter if it's got a grade on it, unless you want that to be the case. Or you have an autograph you want authenticated, that's fine. You can go and get an authentication and have it slabbed, protect the card. But this whole thing where you have to have a PSA 10 or you don't have a card, it's just mind-boggling to me. An 8 or 9, if you have just the naked eye, it's so negligent as far as what it looks like. You don't even see a difference in the card until you get in the 6 and 5 range. That's when you start seeing the wear and tear and stuff. And that's another thing I don't think people understand either, is that the grading is negligent unless you're trying to just sell the card. Like, I can go get a PSA 8 of an autograph of whoever, and it's going to look the same as a PSA 10 to me because it's just the naked eye looking at it.
Exactly.
But if you're trying to sell it, then that's a difference because you want that 10 instead of the 9 or the 8.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more with you there. Not every single card needs to be slabbed, especially if you're collecting with intention and you're just focusing on what you like, what you know, how you want to collect. So with that being said, if you're only grading a card so that it looks nice and pristine in a PSA slab or, you know, an SGC tuxedo slab or BGS, whatever the case may be, there are other options out there. Like, you know, a few shameless plugs, and these are not sponsors of the podcast by any means, but Slab Factory, perfect example. They make these really, really nice looking, I don't know if you could see that. Yeah. They make these really nice, I mean, they look like slabs. You could customize the labels, and they become pretty popular. They honestly stack up next to PSA slabs really nicely. They're almost the same size, and they cost what, $5? Right. Same thing here. This is
one touch, you know, just $5.
A simple mag one touch. Like, here are a few other options. A few folks in the group were talking about this company Mint. I wasn't sure if it was you or Travis.
Yeah, Brian Perup. Yep. He actually does really good things in the hobby as far as that goes.
These are beautiful. I mean, I bought them on, this was actually my one Cyber Monday purchase. They were $10 each or $20 each on Walmart. And I had like a gift card. So I just went ahead and grabbed a few just to try them out. You know, they're great. They're not like, you know, made of
really good too. It's the
they're
strong
not made of like fiberglass or anything. They're not like super fancy, but they look great. They, you know, the cards look great in them. You don't need to send every single card out to grading and go through the whole process just to fit in or just to be a part of, you know, the hype and the camaraderie. Like, you could do your own thing in your own lane. Just stick to what you like and what works for you, what fits your story. So that's really important. So how does all of this, the grading, the corruption, the manipulation, shape the psychology of collectors who genuinely want to make informed decisions in a system that isn't transparent?
So if you don't have transparency in something, you don't have trust. How are you going to trust something if you don't know what's going on, if you don't have transparency, if you feel like they're hiding something? Arena Club's a primary example of this. They put so-called odds on their grail cards, right? What they don't tell you is when it's pulled. So if someone's already pulled that Patrick Mahomes rookie card graded 10, you don't even know it. You're going in there buying those packs thinking you're going to grade that card, and unless you go down and look at the list, you won't even see the card in there anymore because it's not there. They don't tell you that. They don't say, oh, by the way, that card's been pulled or that card's no longer available. Here's some more grails. It's chase the grail, even though it may or may not be there anymore. That's not transparency. How are you going to spend thousands of dollars on something and not see through it, or at least do your due diligence and look into it? You know, like, you know, you'll have, I mean, we could talk about Jeff Wilson, and he does a lot of hype for Arena Club. He's endorsed by them. Pac-Man's the same way. And they're not giving you an accurate description on how that works. Either A, they have disposable income and they're able to spend that kind of money, or B, arena clubs providing them the packs.
Yeah.
Now, I'll give Pac-Man some credit. He actually was a little transparent, saying they pay for half and I pay for the other half.
Did he say that? Was that recent?
It's been in the last couple of months. He's actually said, I spent some, and he admits he's a degenerate, so he's not
one thing I'll say about that, Charles, is that people say things and it gets lost in the shuffle. It gets lost in the clutter. You create a 40-minute video of you opening slab packs on Arena Club and you drop that in at the end. Most people are probably not going to see it or hear it. So it's all good. It's all fantastic when people are honest and transparent, but we have to be more strategic with the placements where we say these things and we talk about,
it needs to be a disclaimer first thing in the video and not,
exactly.
Oh, by the way.
Yeah. So like at the end of the day, all of this just puts collectors in a constant state of second guessing, right? When the system isn't transparent, people start relying on emotional instead of information, chasing what feels safe rather than what is safe. And that uncertainty just makes them more vulnerable to things like hype and to bad actors and to making decisions that don't actually reflect their true intentions as collectors.
Right.
So with that, we will transition over to our next segment, which is content creators, influence, and the responsibility no one wants to admit. So this is actually a perfect segue given what we were just talking about. So let's shift toward the content creation and the influence. So whether creators want to admit it or not, they shape behavior, they move markets, they influence emotion. You've been very vocal about this. So what responsibilities do content creators actually have, and where do you see the biggest blind spots?
Content creators have the biggest responsibility to be transparent, to give accurate information, and to make sure that they're looking out for the collector and not for themselves and not for their pockets. That's the biggest thing that the responsibility of content creators have. The biggest hole that they don't feel is simply being transparent. They're not transparent enough. They're worried more about hyping the product than saying, no, you don't have that much of a chance to get it, or they'll say it in passing and act like they, we warned you, we told you. It's like, yeah, but you were also spending, 5 minutes ripping the packs online, and oh my gosh, I pulled a Jaden Daniels to 5 or something crazy. We're worried, why don't you say, mind you guys, we're doing this. We have the income to do it. It's entertainment. There's a less than 1% chance of pulling these kinds of cards. So, but we're going to see what we can do, as opposed to, can you believe this? It's time to trace the grill. Let's go. And it's like, that's not helping the hobby. Right. All you're doing is, simply being a hype man and, like Duff Man from The Simpsons. That's all you're doing. You're going around dancing and, the dancing bear kind of thing. And if that's your avenue and if that's something, you want to do, that's fine. And I've noticed too, because I was a media major. I was a broadcast media major when I was in college. And one thing you have to have is a little bit of personality and a little bit of bass in your voice when you talk, because you're on the radio or you're in front of a TV or what have you. Right. And some people who were never doing that before, they are like addicted. It seems like they're almost addicted to the fact that they can make a video. Like, there's certain ones that make videos every day, or there's certain ones that have high production value. Like, why are you spending that much money on production value on something that's, like baseball cards? It's because they're addicted to the fact that people want to watch them and that they can entertain and they can be the carnival barker. Hello, everybody. And, look at this $5,000 box of cards. Let's see if we can find a Shohei Ohtani. And you get nothing. You get dusted. That's what we don't see a lot of. And as far as the content creators, you don't see the bad. Like, oh my gosh, look at this awesome, like Matt Shaw, the 10 I pulled, right? You don't see the 75 cards sitting on my coffee table that were base cards that I don't know what to do with. Or the 5 boxes under my coffee table that I have stored away, but what do I do with them? I don't want to throw them away because I don't want to feel like I'm, disrespecting the hobby. But at the same time, that's not pointed out nowhere near enough. There's a lot of holes in the hobby and the influencers, and they're just not being transparent about the reality. Right. And it won't hurt their bottom line. It would actually probably encourage more people to watch them. Like, hey, you know what? This guy seems like he's honest and kind of looking out for me. Heck, I might want to subscribe to him and see what else he has to say. But it's almost like once they do that and they get you hooked in, then all of a sudden they got a sponsorship with somebody. They got a sponsorship with this and that. And it's like, okay. So they're just like everyone else. It just took them longer to get there.
Yeah. And look, at the end of the day, like as somebody who spent 13 years in marketing and advertising, I'm not going to knock the hustle and say, once
Right.
you get a sponsor on a podcast or a video series or whatever the case may be, you're a sellout. Like, people got to keep the lights on. People got to put food on the table. And so
Exactly.
I respect that hustle. I respect the entrepreneurship that a lot of these creators and influencers, especially in the hobby, have nowadays. I think investing in your own production quality and your brand, even if it's just sports cards, like more power to you. If that's a priority for you or your business or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But to your point, like where I start to have a problem is the lack of transparency. How many times do you think, and I'm not being accusational or saying this is common, but we talked before about the influencer boxes. Let's put aside the whole conspiracy of influencer boxes and think about, you're watching a video of a guy ripping a box of cards. He hits the case hit or the color blast or the downtown or the kaboom or the 101 auto, whatever it is. And now the headline says 1 of 1 Patrick Mahomes downtown, what, like, gold vinyl, this, that, the other. He's using all these taglines, all these words in the headline and in the tags. Now the video is getting more views because of it, more engagement, right? Which drives to more revenue. It's very unclear if those types of influencers, those types of creators have the tendency to maybe create 5, 6, 7, iterations of the same video until they hit that box so that they can ultimately drive the views. Now, again, with that said, I know that there are a lot of influencers, a lot of creators. RGL is one of them, and he's been a hot topic for us as of late.
Yep.
He's one who puts out the product, and I genuinely think, or I'm sorry, puts out the video of him ripping the product, and I genuinely think that he's like a one take kind of guy. He rips it. If it's good, great. He posts it, publishes it. If it's bad, fine. He publishes it, and he calls it for what it is. And I've always respected that about him. Now, I'm not going to get into all the other, sort of side conversations that were happening around
Yeah.
him. I like his content. I think he puts out great videos. I think he's a fair breaker. He looks out for his customers. I endorse RGL. So there are other folks in the hobby like him that put out content that I think is non-polarizing, isn't just, engagement and click farming and just trying to attract attention, and is legitimate and is genuine and authentic. But at the end of the day, again, these folks, they have to find a way to bring in the audience, bring in the traffic, bring in the views, bring in the sponsors. And so how authentic is the key word here. How authentic is the content that's being put out? So it's just some food for thought. Again, not being accusational, not saying everybody does this, but we also have to be mindful because it influences people's purchasing decisions. You see somebody rip open a box of Donruss football, they hit the downtown and it's a hot box and all these amazing things come out of it. And suddenly you're feeling the itch. And so you go to your local hobby shop, or you go to your favorite breaker on Whatnot, and you're like, hey, do you have any of the new Donruss optic football? And you go through 5, 6 boxes and you just get absolutely rinsed. And suddenly you're feeling like, what the hell? This is not how it was advertised to me. So we have to keep that in mind. We have to stay informed. We have to keep spreading awareness, educating folks. What you see on the internet is 90% of the time not the reality of what's going on.
It's a mirage. That's how I always put it.
Yeah.
It's not
So
what you think.
We've talked about this behind the scenes, Charles. When creators refuse to acknowledge their influence, the hobby gets more dangerous. So why do you think so many creators avoid accountability? Do you think it's fear? Is it ignorance? Is it incentive? Like, why aren't more creators, breakers, card shops coming out and speaking up about all of the things that we talk about daily at Collectors MD?
Because all that stuff makes them money. It's really that simple. All that stuff makes them money. If they start being transparent and started, telling you that the odds are not good, then why would I buy into the break if they're not good? So instead, you focus on the positives, or you spin, and you keep that money coming in. At the end of the day, that's what matters. two breakers, and that's what matters to anyone that's trying to be an influencer or makes money from the YouTube content. They need engagement. And you don't get engagement by saying, you know, you might not want to watch this. I don't really pull anything in it. Instead, you're like, I could possibly pull a one-on-one Shohei Ohtani, and you never get it. You know, one of the things, like we mentioned RGL, he admits he's transparent. He's a degenerate. He likes to rip sometimes expensive cards. He doesn't hide that. And his last video, as a matter of fact, he ripped, I think it was Mosaic Choice. And those are $448 a box, $900, tax and all. And he said flat out, I got $100 worth of cards out of it. He just flat out said
he puts out content like that all the time. And that's one thing I've always respected about him. I've been watching his content for years, and he's always 100% transparent. He calls manufacturers, platforms out. He says it how it is. And frankly, I think more people should follow suit in terms of, you know, content and creativity, and, you know, not just focusing on what's popular and what's hyped and what can I say that's just going to drive more traffic and, you know, polarizing conversation around the content. Like, let's just be true to ourselves, man. That's what it comes down to.
Like, here's the thing too, like we'll mention Jeff Wilson. You know, I don't hate Jeff Wilson like a lot of people do. He is the most polarizing person in the hobby. He either has, you love him or you hate him. There's really not an in between. Jeff Wilson's been collecting cards for 7 years now. He got back just before the pandemic started. And he said this on, I think it was one of the Chasing Cardboard, so it was. And I watched his interview because when I see someone that's like that much in the hobby and his videos are everywhere, I want to know what's going on with him. Where'd he come from? Where's he been? And he did his profile. He said, I saw my kid rip Panini cards, and he saw the shiny cards, and he liked them. So he decided after 20 some odd years, he was going to start getting back in the hobby. And then he discovered PSA, and he discovered this and that. But it was 7 years ago. He is not a seasoned, like 35-year collector. Like,
but you don't have to be. You don't have to be in order to be a part of the club. You know.
But at the same time,
but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, he has the money because he was a investor in technology companies. So he had money to invest in his product, you know, the quality of his production and his message. So it looks like it's professional. So you see it and you're instantly like, well, he knows what he's talking about because it looks like a newsroom. Right. And he carries himself like he's an authority. He has that authoritative thing about it.
Yeah. I mean, I also think he's an intellectual, intelligent person that is, you know, entrepreneurial and savvy and knows his way around professional conversation, which, you know, frankly, a lot of people in the hobby don't necessarily do. And I think people are a little bit intimidated by that. And, you know, there's a huge reason why his content is polarizing, but he's also come out and spoken about how he intentionally makes polarizing content because he knows what's going to drive traffic, just like we were talking about.
Engagement in the traffic. Exactly.
And like, that's great and all to an extent, but there has to be other voices, other pathways, other lanes where people can talk about what's really going on. Like I'm not just talking about the news. I'm talking about what they're feeling, what they're going through. And so we're hopeful that this platform can serve that as we continue to grow. And one last thing, we are going to have Jeff Wilson on the podcast next Thursday. And we're going to talk about some of the things that have been going on between, you know, the pushback that we've received for partnering with market movers to where he wants to see the hobby go from a growth standpoint while keeping it safe, healthy, sustainable. And so, you know, I'd love to ask him questions that perhaps some of our audience members would like me to ask him. So if you're watching this or you're listening to it on one of the streaming platforms, feel free to shoot me a DM. Let me know. What do you want me to ask Jeff Wilson? Like I'm talking to him on behalf of our community. Collectors MD is not just me. It's Charles. It's Travis. It's Sean. It's Hyde. It's all of these people that I have brought onto this show. We are a movement. This isn't a leader movement. This is a community movement. This is peer support. So I would love to hear from the audience as far as like what you guys want me to talk to Jeff about, and, you know, whether that be, you know, having a candid conversation about all the things I just mentioned or challenging him a little bit. So I think it's going to be really great. We're also bringing on Chasing Cardboard. That's Ty Wilson, not
Yep.
related to Jeff, but we're going to be bringing him on in the new year. We have that scheduled, I believe, for January. So lots of exciting things going on. And yeah, just stay tuned for those. So with that, let's transition over to actually, I do have one more question before we switch over to the rapid fire round. And that is, on the flip side, what does responsible content look like? What does true transparency look like in the hobby?
The true transparency in the hobby looks like someone showing you the box that you're opening, showing you what's in the box. Like Panini has that all written down. Like, here's what all you can get out of this particular box, including this and that and the other. And those that are transparent will show you, hey, so here's what you can get out of this. And that goes for breakers too. If breakers show you that, you can probably trust that you can spend some money with them and understand, okay, so at least I know what I'm getting into. That's what that looks like, is if you have that kind of transparency where they're telling you what's going on. They'll tell you who's not in the product. Like, for example, Topps Chrome. Very few people mentioned Cal Raleigh and Pete Crow Armstrong were not in the product. And I collect Pete Crow Armstrong. So I, of course, unfortunately bought a couple of boxes before I realized, oh, wait, the only thing I can get out of here is a Future Stars. There's nothing else with him in it. And if you're a Cal Raleigh collector, there is no reason for you to buy it because he's not in the product. And he's barely an update, as a matter of fact. And you see some of the content, they'll show you the hits from Cal Raleigh, but they don't say, oh, by the way, he doesn't even really have a lot. He has a couple of, case hits and stuff like that. Transparency looks like just simply saying, here's what's going on. Here's what's in the product. Here's how much it costs. Here's how much you could possibly get back. Here's the floor and ceiling. There's a card in here that could be worth $10,000, but the vast majority of your cards are under $10. Something like that is something that I would like to see more of. And that's what that looks like to me.
Well said. Before we keep going, I do just want to share something important. We're rolling out a Collectors MD, and this is something that I've teased out a few times now, but I think this is a perfect opportunity to talk about it. And that's that we're launching a new campaign called #RipResponsibly. And no, this isn't about judging anyone who loves ripping packs or getting in breaks. We get it. It's fun. It's exciting. It's part of the hobby. But we also know how quickly that excitement can flip into pressure, overspending, or chasing losses. So this campaign is all about awareness, intention, and giving people real tools to enjoy the hobby without letting it take over their finances or mental health. So you're going to start seeing the #RipResponsibly messaging across our content, in our guides, in shops and break rooms of card shops and breakers that we partner with, and hopefully throughout the entire hobby over time. And it's a reminder, it's not a restriction, that collecting should feel good, not stressful. And so if ripping is part of your routine, that's awesome. Just make sure you're doing it with clarity and intention, not compulsion. That's what Rip Responsibly is all about. And so I want to take a quick moment just to share some of the accessories that we have collaborated with two different companies on, Chronic Cards and Stand Up Displays. They will be the manufacturer for all of our Rip Responsibly supplies. And so here's a quick look at some of the Collectors MD and Cards HQ co-branded supplies that will be rolling out in the coming weeks. They're already available for purchase. This is the card stand on the left. You have the backdrop in the middle and card mats on the right. And the idea here is that our partners, the break groups, the card shops, they use these supplies during their live streams to layer in that responsible messaging and direct their users who might need help and support to Collectors MD. And so we actually have just straight up Collectors MD card stands, mats, backdrops. This isn't about making money. This isn't about selling product. Frankly, if 3 people buy a card stand, that'd be amazing. Like, we're not trying to pump units here or transactions or sales. We just want to continue spreading awareness and spreading this message. So if you're watching this and you happen to work at a card shop or a break group and you want to get involved in the Rip Responsibly campaign, just shoot me a message and I'd be happy to get you some information around how you can get involved and be a part of this. But I will say that in order to partner with us on this campaign, you do have to abide by our guidelines and our guardrails. And so it's all about protecting the consumer, protecting the community, making sure that we're layering in the appropriate messaging so that, again, we can be there as a layer of support as people need it. And so real quick, these are just some of the card stands that we've developed in partnership with Stand Up Displays. These are two of our upcoming partners. One of them is Rip Hamilton, which is one of the biggest break groups on Whatnot. And the other is Jeff Wilson's company, Cards HQ, which is one of the biggest card shops in the country. So really excited about this. Charles, thanks for the shameless plug there. But I just wanted to alert people on what we've been working on and let them know that, we're not just a movement that is trying to make noise. We're actually focused on real reform and making a real change and a real impact in this hobby. So spread the message, spread the word, show us some love on social media, tag us, we'll repost it. And so with that, I will stop sharing my screen and we can get over to the rapid fire round. So I'm going to ask you a question. I want your first thought, honest thought, first thing that comes to mind. You ready?
Sure.
All right. One hobby myth you wish collectors would let go of.
That grading is everything.
The most overrated narrative in the market right now.
That grading is everything.
The most underrated risk collectors ignore.
The money aspect. Simply just all of a sudden you don't have any money in your account and you're wondering where it's gone to.
One company or platform you believe could change everything if they actually wanted to.
Fanatics.
A trend you're watching closely heading into 2026.
What's going to happen when Topps gets the license to football?
One sentence that sums up where the hobby really is right now.
It's a money pit.
Charles, thank you, not just for being here, but for the honesty, clarity, and depth you bring to the hobby. What you're doing really matters. Your work helps collectors understand forces they're swimming in every day, often without awareness. So to our listeners, conversations like this aren't about pessimism. They're about transparency, empowerment, and building a healthier hobby culture, one where people understand the system well enough to engage intentionally, not impulsively. If you ever felt overwhelmed by the speed of the hobby, pressured by hype cycles, or confused by the noise, you're not alone. That's exactly why Collectors MD exists. We host free weekly peer support meetings every Wednesday night from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern. And we host another meeting every Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern in partnership with the Problem Gambling Coalition of Colorado, which is called Unboxed, powered by Collectors MD. You can access meetings, tools, resources, and all of our content at collectorsmd.com. Be sure to subscribe to the Collectors Compass across YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and all major streaming platforms. And check out our other series, Behind the Breaks and Collectors MD features. Charles, thanks again. I'm Alyx Efron. This is the Collectors Compass, reminding you to collect with intention, not compulsion. We'll see you next time.